This is the fourth in the series, so thank you. And as you know, this is the topic for tonight. It's going to be presented by, firstly, Ron, who will talk about some case studies and also how to use some of the equipment to measure how much consumption individual items in your house are consuming. And Elaine's going to continue on with some more information on some improvements to improve energy efficiency of your house. I forgot to say we're on the land of the Taungurung people, so we honour them and their ancestors, past, present, future and emerging. So over to Ron.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about energy efficiency in the home. It's a far-ranging topic. And as you probably all know, looking at your power bill, we really want to get that power usage down. And some of the things we'll talk about, hopefully we'll have a roundtable discussion at the end, so you can contribute ideas that you actually tried in your home, and we can actually discuss it together. So it's an important thing to do. We need to get energy efficiency. But if you have looked at all the range of things that you can do to reduce the energy usage in your house, you realise that some are relatively inexpensive, some are free, some are very expensive. So the question is, how do I know what I'm saving if I put these improvements in? So what we're going to do tonight is talk about some measuring tools which you can use to actually work out what your consumption is in your house, and that should give you some idea about what savings you could make if you change things or put energy efficiency solutions in place. We'll also talk about some case studies. I'll talk about the place that I'm renovating, which is an old building. Elaine will talk about her place, which is a new building, and you'll see the strategies are different, simply because of the age of the building. And then we'll talk about efficiency ideas, and that's where I think we should all join in, because I think we've all tried to do things to save on power. So it's important to know where your energy is going. So what energy usage do we use in the house? Well, the top three are basically mechanical action. So we actually switch something on to get some mechanical action happening. All right. So, and they're obvious energy usages. So like you switch on your washing machine, you switch on your sound system, you switch on your power saw. So you're actually switching something on to create mechanical action, to do something that you want to do. You switch on your oven. We also use energy through light. All right. So at night we switch on the lights so we can see what we're doing. But there are also lots of other lights in your place as well. If you walk through your house at night without the lights on, you'll see all sorts of lights. All right, and these are sort of status lights which are on microwaves and ovens and sound systems and things like that, clocks and timers. So, and they are all using energy. You may not be using that bit of equipment, but the fact that you can actually see light means you're actually using energy. And the third major one is temperature control. So people either want to heat their house or they want to cool their house. So radiators, air conditioning, oven, and what I call background heat, because if you're actually doing this or you're doing that, you're generating heat. And if you're generating heat, you're using energy. Right? So it's not as simple as saying, what have I switched on, what have I switched off? And we'll try and tease some of that as we go through. But it's interesting to know just where on your power bill, your $300 a quarter or whatever it is actually going over the course of 3 months. So I want to talk about 3 devices that you can use. The first one, which John discussed in the first session we had here, is PowerPal. So if you walk around the yard at night, which I used to do when I was walking my dog late at night, it's like a Christmas tree, right? Every house has got a meter box on the front porch and it's flashing red lights. For as far as you can see, there's red lights everywhere. It's actually very, very pretty. Right. Now, the red light which is furthest to the left actually flashes. Right? If you have a look at your own meter box, it flashes. And the frequency at which it flashes is directly proportional to the amount of energy you're using. So if you're using a lot of energy, that red light is flashing very, very fast. If you're using very little energy, the red light is hardly flashing at all. So what PowerPal does, you actually glue a sensor over that red light, and you can see this is my meter box, so this is the sensor sitting on my meter box. The sensor's sitting there. You actually glue that over the red light, and that sensor counts the number of flashes, right? And then translates that into power usage, because it's a direct correlation. So it counts the number of flashes. It's connected to I think it's Bluetooth, a Bluetooth transmitter, and then you download an app onto your computer or your iPad or your iPhone. And this is one of the. I didn't go through all the screen. This is one of the screens. This is on my iPad. Okay. So just to explain what this is a 24-hour clock from 12 midnight all the way through to 12 midnight. Off-peak power times are in green. So starts at, looks like 11, goes through to 7. Peak power times is from 7 through to 11. So what you can do in your app is you can actually put in the rate that which you're paying for energy, for off-peak energy and for peak energy. Right, so you program that in, and that'll change depending on who your provider is. So some people have higher rates than others, but have other benefits. So you actually program that in, and then PowerPal just tells you, here, this is actual usage at those times. Right, so what I've done here is I've gone back to, just to explain, this is a map of March for where I live, and this is my power usage every day in March. So just to show you over a whole day, I've picked the highest usage day that I had in March, and you can see this is Tuesday the 16th of March, and over Tuesday the 16th of March, this is my power usage in white here. Okay, so you can see some cycling up and down here, if your eyes are good. Not like mine, but you can see some cycling up and down. That is probably my fridge switching on and off, and my freezer. All right. And then on the 16th of March at round about 11 o'clock, I did something. I don't know what it was, I can't remember, but the power usage jumped up. Okay, and then it went down again, and the power usage was generally higher during the day. That's because I work from home, so there's probably computer use and things. And then round about 6:30, the power jumped up again. And then round about, from 8 through to 10, the power sort of increased slightly. That's probably lighting. But you can see that you could actually so this tracks real time. All right, so if you pick the day which was actually happening, say it's 7 o'clock at night, you'll only get it round about to there, but you can actually switch things on and off and see how much power you're using. So it's a very simple, useful device. And then it converts that into dollars per hour. So in my house, for this day, I was using 6 cents per hour. So my daily charge for power in my house was $1.42. Right? And that was a big day. That was a big day for me. But it's a very simple device, and guess what? The Victorian government are now providing it for free.
Except in the, I've ordered one months ago and I'm still waiting.
Yeah, well, I actually bought mine because I didn't want to wait, but the deal is that the Victorian government has made a deal with PowerPal, and you can apply and you get them for free. And if you really want to understand where your power is going, this is a really free but simple tool for doing that. At really a gross level, I mean, you can't really separate, which is the fridge and which is the freezer and which is etc. etc. But at a high level, you can actually tell where your power is going. And you can switch things on and off and see it real time with your iPad in your hand. Oh, that's worth that much money. Questions, yeah?
Ron, have you got solar panels?
No.
Okay, so this is just what's drawn from the grid.
This is just what's drawn from the grid, that's correct. So no solar panels at all.
Does it show you the instantaneous power at the moment when you look at it?
Yep.
Okay, so you could turn
So you
on,
can actually switch things
turn
on and off,
and you see the jump.
and you'll see the difference.
Right.
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
How much are they to purchase if you didn't
I think it
want
was,
them?
from memory, $99 to buy.
I think they're
Either 79 or 99, but
Yeah.
120 now.
120 now. But you know, you can get them for free as long as obviously you're prepared
You
to.
won't.
Yeah, but they're doing it in Metropolitan, but they don't think they've moved to the regional areas to install them for free yet.
Yeah, but you can really install them yourself. All you got to do is glue the sensor.
Yeah, I
on
know,
the
it's
front,
pretty
right?
easy to install.
And if anybody gets stuck, give me a call.
Yeah.
I'll do it in about 30 seconds for you.
Yeah.
Right? Be around on my bicycle. So this is a free, relatively easy to use tool for working out how much your appliances cost. For example, if you're in a big house with lots of people in it, now I live by myself, so it's a bit different, but you know, people got lights on in different rooms, and sometimes the lights stay on forever, and you can actually switch off the lights in your house in the room that are not being used, and you can actually see what difference that will make real time to the cost of your the cost of your energy bill. So, so that's the first one, and I led off with this one because it's free. The second device, which I want to talk about, is something called a Power Mate. And this is a Power Mate, and this is now the possession of the library, and you can actually take this out of the library as you would a book. All right, so it's just here in the library to be borrowed. So you come in with your library card and you swipe and you can take it away. Now what a Power Mate does, it measures a number of energy parameters: cost, greenhouse gases, amps, resistance, voltage, current, for any device you plug in here. All right, so you plug this in the PowerPoint, and then you plug your microwave into here, or your oven into here, or your fridge into here, and it will tell you any of the parameters you want to know. Now the one I'm most interested in is cost, obviously, and I guess most people would be. So I've got my own Power Mate here. And
You'll give up eating toast after you've tried it.
Sorry?
You'll give up eating toast.
You will. You will. So
But one of the problems, Ron, is that in this house that we're living in, the plugs are in behind the appliances.
understand. But yeah, understand. So you have to get to the plug. I mean that's.
Yeah.
So if you want to reduce your power bills easy enough, you'll do it. Or give me a call for a piece of fruitcake. I'll come around and move your fridge for you.
2 pieces.
2 pieces of fruitcake.
2 places.
So, so you simply plug this into your power socket. You plug whatever device you want into here, and you can work out all the electrical factors to do with that piece of equipment. So this will be available from the library, if it's not already, because I borrowed it, in the very near future, as soon as I get it registered. Right, physics lesson. Before we go on to the third tool, a bit of a physics lesson, all right? Now, I don't want to scare people, but this is important. Electromagnetic radiation, big 2 words, but it's all around us all the time. It doesn't hurt us, but it's all around us, all right? Now, if you haven't heard of this term before, you will have heard of some of these terms before because they're all electromagnetic radiation, all right? So, radio waves, right? They travel as waves through space. Microwaves, same thing, a bit higher energy. Infrared, you would have heard of that. Bit higher energy again. Visible, this is what we can detect with the eye. All right, higher energy again. Ultraviolet, you would have heard of that. Higher energy again. X-rays, you would have heard of those. Higher energy again. And at the very high energy part of the spectrum are gamma rays. And you know the energy goes increases this way because of their effect on the human body. Infrared lamps heat the surface of your skin. For those who've had sore backs and things, very often the doctor will prescribe putting an infrared lamp shining on it and you'll feel the warmth, all right? So this is sort of surface type thing. Ultraviolet rays, cause sunburn, right? So they get to within the first half a millimetre or 1 millimetre into your skin, and they can cause skin cancer. X-rays go right through the body, which is what we use them for, right, to determine what happens with your bones. So this is all the same stuff, it's at different energy levels. And the reason I put this up is that you can actually detect each one of these if you've got the right detector. So you can detect X-rays, obviously, because you get X-ray images of your body. You can detect ultraviolet with an ultraviolet detector. You can detect visible with your eye or a camera. You can detect infrared using the infrared detector. And the reason I say that is that when things are warm or at a higher temperature, they give off infrared radiation. So you can actually tell temperature differences by looking at something using an infrared camera, because there's actually a map of the heat of what you're looking at. So also available from the library is an infrared camera. And it's really easy to use. Just turn it on. And you wait a couple of seconds for it to... Maybe I'll just... Oh, here it is. So that's the vision you would get. So what you're looking at is probably the screen there, all right? And you can see that the screen is... You can see that the screen is yellow, so it's hotter than the surrounding, as you would expect, because it's actually operating. And you can see down here there's a little yellow blip, and that is the power box, the multi-port plug. So what you can use this for is to actually go around your house and see what's hot and what's cold, and work out where drafts are coming in, where the insulation's not working, where your cat is. If you can't find it in the dark, you can sort of look at it, because humans come up really good on, because we're hot bodies, right? So we'll come up as bright white. So you can use an infrared camera. So just to give you some examples of what it looks like. Oh, sorry, I first came across this about a decade ago because I used to live in Flowerdale up on Junction Hill, and I was lucky enough for about a decade to have two powerful owls roosting on my property. All right, so they're in the same spot roughly every day. And the first couple of years it was really exciting to see them and all that, but then Kate and I really wanted to know where they were nesting, okay? Now the trouble with owls, well, it's not trouble with owls, they're quite happy about it, but the trouble with me looking at owls is that during the day they sit in the same spot. They're only active at night. Right? So to find out where they're nesting, I need to be able to track them at night. So I'd go out at night, but owls being owls, their feathers are built such that they fly silently. So even if they were nearby, you can't hear them and you can't see them. So my neighbour, Trent Patton, whose business was to do thermal imaging of supermarkets, brought his infrared camera down, and this is the same picture as this. This is taken exactly the same time, me with my normal camera and him with his infrared camera. All right, so how you interpret this diagram is the temperature scale is on the right hand side there. So roughly speaking, and this was taken during the day as well, all right, so we're taking exactly the same time. So the sky was about 9.4 degrees Celsius. The leaves of these trees was around about maybe 10 or 11. The branches, which actually absorb heat from the sunlight, right, and have more mass to them so they actually hold the heat, is around about maybe 11.5, 12 degrees. And the owls themselves are, 14.6 degrees or hotter. Right. So this is an example of how I first came across using infrared technology to basically trace heat. And Trent, of course, is the major contributor to saving the Leadbeater's possums, because he goes into the Toolangi forests at night, and with his heat-seeking equipment, he can see possums which he can see possums in hollows because the heat coming out of the hole in the hollow. And if he can detect those, then he has an exclusion zone for logging around that particular tree, because that's the rules, right?
So did you find your nest?
No. I haven't got any trees big enough, so no, I didn't. But I could talk for hours on powerful hours. You don't want to get me started. So here is a picture of, I guess, the ceiling of a storeroom. And with the infrared camera, you can actually see where the insulation hasn't been put in correctly. All right. So, there's no insulation here. There's no insulation there, and the insulation is mottled over the other. So if you're trying to heat that storeroom, heat would be going straight up out where there's no insulation. Here's another example, another storeroom. These are from Trent. Once again, they put the insulation down, but they just got a bit sloppy when it got to the edge of the room. Right? So once again, you got insulation in the roof? Sure you have. Is it effective? Well, I don't know, because, here represents spots where there's no insulation. And you can use an infrared camera to look for insulation. You can look for drafts, especially at night where it's a big differential between when it's cold outside and warm inside. You just put your thermal camera up there and you can actually literally see the drafts coming under the door or through a crack in the roof or around the light fittings or whatever.
Ron, just a question.
Yep.
Where it's white,
Yep.
on your scale it says 30.1.
Yep.
What does that mean?
That's the temperature of... This was taken on
During
a
the
hot
day?
day.
A hot day. Okay.
Sorry, hot day. Yeah, so you've got to be careful what you're looking at and when. So this is a hot day where they're looking for heat getting in as opposed to heat getting out. So this is my place. So this is the back patio. So just to explain that, this is a brick wall. That's a brick wall. This is obviously single laminated glass doors. And this is a stud wall, a plaster stud wall to fill in the gap. Right. So last night I actually took a picture of it. And I was actually quite shocked because the brick wall is warm, as you would expect. This brick wall is warm, as you would expect. The single pane glass doors are colder, as you would expect. But what I found was, which I didn't know at all, was that this stud wall has got no insulation in it. In fact, you can not only can you see that it's probably the same temperature as the glass, you can actually see the wooden slats in it because the wood is a bit warmer, right? So the camera's pretty good for even detecting what happens inside walls, right? So now I've got to go and tear this wall down, pack it with bats, and put the plaster wall up again. If I think it's worth my while to do that, and it all comes down to cost, right? How much is this costing me? Don't know. Can't plug the wall into a PowerMate. Can't tell me, but it's an issue in the back there. This is my kitchen. So this is the oven being used, right? Obviously, it's not. Well, it's detected. Well, it had been used. Put it that way. So it's down at 44 degrees now, in there somewhere. But what's more interesting to me is that this is a microwave oven, not being used. All right, and it is generating. It's got a clock there in lights, so it is generating light, and it is generating heat. And this is a device which is not being used. So I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm going to take the PowerMate, I'm going to test all my appliances when they're not being used. Not switched off at the wall, but just not being used. So they're just sitting there, not doing anything. So this is using the PowerMate, that's this thing here, and plugging each device into here individually. This is the cost for me using Energy Australia, so I don't know whether they're the cheapest or the most expensive, but these are my power bills. This is the cost per quarter, so 3 months. And the PowerMate will tell you that within seconds. It'll tell you that, right? My home entertainment system, which consists of a television, a large screen television about this size, a Blu-ray player, a sound bar, and a bass speaker, $14.50 per month. not using it. Per
month.
quarter, not using it. So over the course of a year, it's costing me around about $70 just to have that sitting in the corner. Now the reason I, in the past, haven't switched it off is because whenever I switch off my big television, I lose all the apps. Now, that's probably not, there's probably something wrong with the system, but that's what it is. So I don't switch my television off. But so all that just sits there generating $14.50. I have to pay $14.50 every quarter. But what I of course can do with the PowerMate, I just plug each one of these individually into the PowerMate to see which one contributes to the cost. And the television only costs 80 cents of that. Right, so what I need to do is I need to put the television in a separate PowerPoint and keep that on all the time, and then have these, which make up the remaining $13, on a separate PowerPoint, which I just switch off and I'm not using it. I thought that was interesting, and I explained it to my neighbour, and she said, "Oh, why don't you come around and test our home entertainment system? $25 a quarter." All right. Now they've got this is technology beyond me, Xboxes, Wiis. They have a portable sound system with cassette deck, CD player, but it's all on one PowerPoint. It's on a power box, but it's all plugged in one PowerPoint. $25 a quarter for nothing. This is not using it. This is just sitting there as an ornament on the table. So you can see where this is going for actually no cost at all to you. If you actually switch your appliances off at the wall, you will save money big time. And if you want to know how much money to save, well, just borrow this thing from the library and you can work out what it is. Now, some things you wouldn't want to switch off. I don't want to switch off my television. I don't want to switch off my modem for the internet, right? Because that just does funny things when you switch back on again. So there's some things you may not want to switch off, but it's up to you based on how much it costs to have it just sitting there, and how much you can save. My oven costs 82 cents a quarter. My microwave, just sitting there, because it's got those big lights and timers and things, $3.30 per quarter to have my microwave sitting there without using it. My computer, and I have several of them, roughly all about 80 cents each per quarter, just with the lid shut down. All right. So what I do at my place now is I've still got because I've got my PowerPoints on the other side of the room. I haven't done this one yet. But I'm going to put this on a separate thing and keep it on. I'm going to switch all that off. And the oven, the microwave, the computers get switched off at the wall. And that's a cost that you can do that for free. All right. You may not want to switch your fridge off at the wall or your freezer. I don't recommend you switch off your modem.
How would you switch off an electric oven that's built in?
Sorry?
How would you switch off an electric oven that's built in?
How would you switch off electric?
That's wired in.
It's still a problem.
Well, you can't.
Depends.
You'd have to pull it out.
Depends how
You
it's
just pull it
installed.
off at the power box.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have a electrical storage hot water system, and I have an instantaneous gas hot water system, and I've just switched off my electrical storage system at the power box. Because they're all on separate fuses, you just switch it off. Once again, depending on where your costs are and what you think is important. But you need to be able to measure it too, right? So, hence PowerPal, PowerMate, and I guess less in terms of dollars and cents, but finding out where, heat's being used, the infrared camera. So I want to talk about an old building which is being renovated. For those who don't know, this is my house. I call it the money pit, but it's pretty obvious. And I've been trying to make this more energy efficient since I moved in. My wife and I moved in 2016. And it's interesting because energy efficiency has been on people's minds forever. The technology hasn't been there to do much about it, but energy efficiency measures have been in place since this was being, even before this was being built. And I just want to show you some of the energy efficiency measures that have been built into the old building and some of the stuff that I've done to actually enhance that as well. What do you notice about that building, just offhand, which would be improve the energy efficiency of it?
Well, it's thick windows.
Thick brick, small windows. All right, so obviously you need light to get in because it was a production area. Lots of brick, small windows. So there's a number of principles which they use to make this building, which was built before refrigeration, mind you, and being a butter factory, it needed to be cool, to make it more energy efficient. One is thermal mass. Now, this is a picture of one of the internal doors, and the reason I put this in, you can see by the recess of the door how thick the walls are. Okay, so the walls in this building are 5 bricks thick. And what the building relies on is thermal mass, that the outside temperature gradually affects the building, but the building is so thick that the temperature goes up and down, but the temperature inside stays relatively constant and just slowly drifts through the seasons. So for example, we've just now come out of summer. If you touch the walls of the butter factory, they're still warm, and they will remain warm until probably around about July, when I have to put the heating on. The reverse is going out the other eye. It's bloody cold in the butter factory, even around about September, October, because the thermal mass is cold then, and it takes a bit to heat it up again. But this principle is used in modern houses, because if you look at modern houses, modern energy efficient houses, they have the winter sun shining on concrete floors normally. So the winter sun comes through the window, it's all built at an angle in the right direction, the winter sun shines on a concrete floor, the concrete floor heats up, the sun sets, and the concrete floor has saved thermal energy, right, through thermal mass. The butter factory in the original design has natural temperature control. So all the rooms in all the corners have hatches, and those hatches are for temperature control. And it was somebody's job, when the temperature outside became lower than the temperature inside, to open up all the hatches in the building. So you had cold air flowing in, flowing across the building in all directions, and then their job was in the morning, when the temperature outside became hotter than the temperature inside, to lock all those hatches up and therefore trap the cold air inside.
But that could be a cycle thing too, because the cool air coming in could force the warm air out.
That's why you've got top and bottom. That's exactly right.
Fantastic.
So if there's a strong breeze coming through, the breeze sort of blows through top and bottom.
Yes.
But you're right, the hot air rises, and you had that convection effect. Now, this is hard to see. This is one of the only windows which has been broken. The butter factory has double paned windows, not double glazed windows, but double paned windows. And I'll explain the difference. They obviously knew that the more barriers you could put between the outside and the inside, the less heat transfer there is. So in the old days, you simply just put more glass panes in there. And you can see this is the external glass pane. And the internal one was here. It's been smashed, but you can actually see the thickness of the frame, and there's the groove where the internal one is. Now, double glazing is different. Double glazing, you get 2 bits of glass, and you either have a gas inside which stops heat transfer, or a vacuum inside which absolutely stops heat transfer. Hey, Ralphie boy. I'm talking. Yeah, I know. The building's full of skylights, right? So this is the room at the back. The room at the back is 20 metres by 20 metres, and without the skylights you would have to have lights on in there during the day just to see what's going on. But there's got skylights in the roof, there's also skylights in the kitchen, the bathroom, the toilets. So unless it gets dark, we don't use any lighting in the back of the building at all through the use of skylights, because lighting obviously is an energy usage. So this is what I have done since I've moved in. So all those very small windows which you saw in the butter factory, all these cassettes now have been double glazed. Okay, and so I've done 14 of them so far, and you would think that all the windows look the same, they're the same shape. I could go to a double glazing place and say, could you please make me 14 times 2, 28 templates of this? But you've got to know that each window is individually made, and I had to get them each custom built. But anyway, it's grand designs without the TV royalties. So, double glaze, because it's all very well having thick walls, but if the temperature's flowing out of the window, it doesn't matter how small it is, you're sort of losing a lot of your temperature control there. So they're all double glazed, and on the off-road side, and this is a council planning requirement, I'm allowed to, because all the windows were frosted. So this was my apartment, it's like living in a cave, you couldn't see what was going on outside. All the off-road windows I'm allowed to make clear now, which lets a lot more light in, which means I don't have to switch the lights on during the day. For a number of reasons, I had to move from my apartment upstairs into a room downstairs. This is the room from the outside. It's an old loading bay, you can tell by the bluestone lintel. But this is what the room was set up like. It had three very small windows there, and it had been bricked up at some point in time previous to my purchasing it. But Kate and I wanted to live in this room for a number of reasons, and we had permission to actually open this out again. So what we did was, we did this. And that's triple glazing. All right, so we had a heritage architect help us with this because there were a number of planning issues with heritage overlays and things we needed to conform to. And we came up with that design. And we wanted double glazing, as everybody does. And the manufacturer of this is a tilt and turn windows, so they open this way and they open that way. The manufacturer said, well, for 10% more, we can triple glaze it. All right, and that doubles your insulation effect. So we thought, well, may as well. So we put that in. That's triple glazed.
Right.
It's also the cost of
Is
this.
that now close to the brick wall in terms of insulation?
Yes, that's one picture I forgot to take last night. So when you take a picture using the infrared camera, the brick wall and the triple glazed window are the same temperature.
Cool.
So there's no heat transfer or cold transfer. I'll take it at night because that's a good way to test. There's no cold transfer, certainly at the moment. Now, as it gets colder in winter, it'll be interesting to see, but I suspect that triple glazing will probably do a good job of it. The first week we moved in, we had all the halogen downlights changed to LED downlights. We had 50 of those, and that was done by a company who do it for free. They just come in and do it, and they take the RECs and they cash them in on the open market, and so that's a free service that people can access themselves. The big loading bay at the back had high bay loading bay lights, had 13 800 watt metal halide globes. Now if you know metal halide globes, they take about 15 minutes to get to optimum intensity. So if you switch them on, it gradually gets lighter and lighter and lighter until they get operating temperature. But if you switch them off, you can't switch them on again for another 10 or 15 minutes, right? Because they need to recover. So if you want to run this as an entertainment venue, those types of lights are not what you want because they take too long to heat up. When you switch them off, you can't switch them back on again, right? So what I did was I bought, for the high bay lights here, Edison globes, right? Now they look like a normal thing you stick into a light socket, but these things are about this big, right? And they screw into there, but they're only 40 watt. So whereas when I switched them on with the metal halide globes, Yay would have a brownout, right? Now all the lights combined use less power, use less energy than one metal halide globe by a long way. and these are much brighter. I can switch them on and off like a normal light. So it's had a lot of advantages, costs, but you weigh it up, and it's not just the cost of electricity, it's convenience and all that as well. I'm now going through the process of changing all the fluorescent globes, and I have 83 of them, to LED tubes. And I'm doing the areas which I use the most, so kitchen, passageways, toilets.
Shouldn't the company do that as well? They did it.
No, because they class this as non-residential now. So
we didn't come to the church and replace 87 fluorescent globes.
I should make it a church then. I was wondering what to do with it. It's a bit too late now. Energy efficient appliances. So I've started putting those into the place. This is all leading up to the fact that I'm going totally solar by the end of the year. So I'm not going to be on the grid at all. And you can see when you buy an appliance, this is my fridge, you can actually see the energy rating. The more stars, the more efficient, energy efficient. What they don't tell you is the more stars, the more cost. But I guess that stands to reason. But they'll actually tell you how much energy is consumed, and you look at your budget, how much energy you save, and you make those decisions yourself.
So, Ron, just before you made a comment before about going totally solar, because it used to be that if you're near the grid, you had to be on the grid, even if you had solar.
Yeah.
Is that still the case?
Yep. Well, I can get it disconnected, but why would I do that?
Yeah. So, but that's still the case, isn't it? You still, like, if you're living in town, like you still have to.
You can have it disconnected if you want to, but it's a huge cost to do that, and I might need it sometime. The A fault
Winter.
comes in for 16 weeks or something. Switching off appliances at the wall, obviously. And I'm not advocating people do this, but this is a specific example for our family. A couple of months after we moved in the butter factory, Kate, as most of you know, got diagnosed with cancer. And one of the upshots of that was she got very cold and her body could not maintain temperature. Now, if you know the rooms in the butter factory, they are huge, all right? They are hard to heat, they are expensive to heat. And the reason we moved downstairs and put that triple glazed window in is it's a small room, right? So it's easy to heat and cheaper to heat. But even still, you still got to go to the kitchen, you still got to go to the bathroom, deadly cold in winter. So, and her solace was working in the garden, and in winter that's pretty cold as well. So, I got on the web, and I'll take this off. This is what I got, right? Battery-powered thermals. Now you may laugh, but this is so much cheaper than heating a whole room. Doesn't matter how big the room is. I can walk around anywhere in the butter factory, I can walk around anywhere in Yea, and I can walk around anywhere in the garden during the middle of winter and feel quite comfy, thank you very much. And you simply switch it on. No, it's not switching on for me. Well, there's a button that switches on, maybe the battery's disconnected. So it runs by a battery. And this is it here. Battery takes about 3 hours to charge. I have a couple of battery packs. And has three heat settings. I've never gone past low. Kate was on high all the time, but I never have gone past low because I cook. And in winter, this is what I live in. And I use very little energy, heating energy at all. And I'm not suggesting you do that, but there are many ways to skin a cat. And if you're living in a factory which is enormous and hard to heat and difficult to heat and expensive to heat, I can sit quite comfortably in my apartment wearing this and have no heating on at all.
I found out about those 2 weeks ago.
They're terrific. This is motorcycle gear, so it's motorcycle riders.
They were using them for camping.
Yeah. So you can get gloves, you can get socks, you can get pants, you can get hats. They're all battery powered. And just don't step in the bath. Okay? I think that's my bit of the presentation of battery powered clothing. You can do some really wonderful things with infrared photography. They say there's no ghosts in the butter factory, but I tell you what, I think there's a ghost right about here. So I'll now hand over to Elaine, who'll continue the presentation. So this goes in the Apple TV.
Yeah.
Where is the Apple TV?
It's in that little box there.
This one?
No, down on the... So I live in Melbourne 3 or 4 days a week, and I've got a little 1895 terrace, and even though I've retrofitted it with underfloor insulation, the back, of course, is really, really low to the ground, so no one could get under. And I thought, I'll go to Enviro Shop and I'll get a heated mat, because my feet, even though I've got double glazed everything in terms of windows, my feet get really cold. Anyway, I thought, well, this is fantastic. So I plugged in and I put it on and I put my feet on it. And then suddenly there was almost like this little microclimate, you know, where the heat rises and then the cold air comes down and was going right up my jeans. So failed. $98 failed. Not a good thing.
Maybe heated slippers are the way to go.
Yeah, I don't think I've sort of got it here. Does this come up? It's so funny, I'm up on here but not... Oh, here we go. Okay, so we don't actually have a lot of time, and I thought this might happen, so I've actually got a presentation that I can give you to take away. There's just a few things that I've found really useful. When I built my house in Yea, the fan in the bathroom? I find my fan in the bathroom in Melbourne is hopeless because I go into the bathroom in the middle of winter and it's really cold. But the one in Yea has a draft stopper. So you can buy these for your fan, or you can get it retrofitted. You can get, so where the fan goes out, the hot air goes out of the bathroom, you can actually get a little top put on it to make that good. The other thing I found really useful, and Gary Mail told me about this one, these Raven products that, again, Raven products, you know, you can put a little flap on the bottom of your door, but still, if the door's old, you'll still get a breeze through the bottom of it. Well, this one has a piece that goes on the doorstep as well as on the door, and they come together.
Yeah.
So you've got an absolute airlock. That's a really good thing. And then using this tape to draft exclude around the door as well.
Can I tell you one thing that in the house we've moved into? If you turn the fan on in the kitchen over the stove,
Yeah.
the smell goes all the way up to the bedroom, and I know what's cooking. From one end to the other.
Oh, raspberry
There's no
stove.
outlet. So we put 2 of those whirligigs on.
Yeah.
It improved slightly, but if there's no wind, I still know what's cooking.
Oh, no.
It's horrible.
Early on in 2030A, we asked people to tell us what they thought was the most important thing about retrofitting their house in Yea, and Rich Lane says, get really handy with a silicon gun. And I've certainly found that there are some products that Enviro Shop sell that are really good. You put them on and they're white, and then they hide every mistake of an amateur caulker because they go clear. And I found that really useful in Melbourne. Insulation, things that are important, so underfloor insulation. Making sure that when you insulate, you do it to the max. I re-insulated in Melbourne 2 years ago, so the insulation in my ceiling was really it almost had decreased in size. So upping the insulation, and then because I've got a little weatherboard house, and there's lots of weatherboard houses in Yea, these are pulverised bats put in at 120 psi, or is it 1,000? No, 1,200 psi into each of those sections of your house, and then they fill it up with goop, and then you've got to paint over it. So there's a painting job after the insulation for retrofitting. And then in my house here, I made sure that I've got insulation underneath the concrete slab and on the sides of the concrete slab as well. Although I wasn't there when they did it, so I hope it's okay. Most people would say now, if you've got a fridge, is it time for an upgrade? I think that I'm always trying to encourage other people in my family that it's really important to have a smaller, better fridge than a big fridge that's got, water and lights and Bluetooth and all those sorts of things. I belong to a group on Facebook called My Efficient Electric Home, and I have to say I've got most of my ideas from reading and asking questions on that site. So I remember I was buying a fridge in Melbourne and also up here, and I went on to My Efficient Electric Home and said, so what's the best sort of fridge for one person in a little house? And they said, well, make sure you buy a fridge with a digital inverter. And that it seems to be that if you've got a fridge that's got a digital inverter, it's got something to do with the compressor not turning off and on all the time, but always being a little bit on. And to me, it's a bit like, or it reminds me of an air conditioner. You get better use from an air conditioner if you've got it on low all the time, rather than turning it off and on. But the other solution, and people would say that if your fridge is not 2/3 full, your fridge is too big. So my fridge is often not got a lot in it up in Yea, and so what I do is I put lots of bottles of water in it to keep the coolth in, because when you open that door you're changing the temperature of what's inside the fridge. I have to say I made a big mistake about a year ago. I went out for dinner in Yea and I grabbed this bottle and I took it off. You know the end to that story. So, Ron has talked about the energy rating, but this is just taking my fridge in Melbourne and looking at the purchase price. I think it's now $10.99 I looked today. So a 343 litre fridge. How much it costs, the energy consumption per kilowatt per year, and I haven't done the last step. You went in looking at how much your electricity bill is to work out how much that cost. But this gives me some costs, and that's from a website called energyrating.gov.au. You can find out what each of those things are going to cost.
How much does it cost?
Oh, well, it's a 3.5 star rating, and this site says that for every new star you get, it's a 23% increase in energy efficiency. The energy used per year, 305, not 317. The annual running cost, $93.64. 10 years running cost, $936.35, plus the purchase price, $829. So total cost of ownership for a decade, $1,765.35. So that's not too bad, actually, when you compare some of the double door fridges with bells and whistles. My sister has, in her little place in Brighton, still one of these air conditioners, which must be 30 years old. The debate I had to have with the builder and the air conditioning mechanic in Yea when I built here was because I had a highly insulated house. When air conditioning people decide for you what size air conditioner you should have, they're not basing it on the energy rating of your house. They're basing it on the space. So he'd wanted me to put in two 2 kilowatt air conditioners in a house that's 83 squares, even with the outside deck. And so I went down to one air conditioner, which is more than adequate because I get my heat in other ways. Also, having a heat pump is a good thing. The technology of a heat pump is drawing heat from the air. It's sort of like the reverse of an air conditioner. And if you go on to 2030 Yea, John Anderson has written a really good description of what happened when the Andersons changed from a normal electricity, electrical hot water service to a heat pump hot water service. Now this is one with the one that I've got. So when I can turn it off at the heat pump if I leave to go to Melbourne. But you know, my electrical box is just outside the front door, so as I get into the car when I'm leaving the house, I turn off the heat pump, because I don't need the hot water being heated day after day when I'm not here. I make sure I have a good shower the first day I'm coming back. Ron talked about lighting. I think a really useful thing that people can do is to think about curtains and blinds that limit the movement of air, whether they're inside, but also for summer, making sure you've got good blinds that cover the outside of your windows. So on the northern side of my little house in Melbourne, I've got blinds that I can pull down, and it changes the temperature all along the side wall because of the glass is not being heated. But here, the other thing that's really important is if you're having curtains, have a pelmet to stop this air circulation, which was a bit like the heat map in my jeans. I've also just put in some honeycomb blinds here in Yea, and pardon me, they're blinds that also assist with, even though I've got double glazed windows, they assist with keeping the heat in the room during winter and keeping that place cool in summer. And I'm also finding that I'm sleeping an hour longer in Yea because they're actually really good block-out blinds.
Can you see through them
No.
from the outside?
No, you can't.
Oh, I need to know a bit more, thank you.
Oh, that didn't work. Go back to that one. Somehow I wanted to show you this little video. No. But I'll just go onto the web and show you this, because it shows you the things that I was able to do. Sorry about this. That I was able to do because I was able to access My Efficient Electric Home and ask questions of people. And then I used an architect who was interested in the same sorts of energy issues. I didn't spend a lot of money with the architect, I didn't spend a lot of time with the architect, but there were good principles. Now we just have to get to the sound. Sorry, it's not very good sound. Well, it's a small house, sits up on the top of the Smith Street goat track end. And this was taken at the winter solstice. So insulation, the most important principle. So 7.3 in the ceiling, 2.7 in the outside walls, 2.5 in the interior.
What is the outside wall?
Colorbond. Best thing, having an airlock entry. And UPVC windows, very much, they're not that expensive, I don't think, and they've been fantastic. Not enough solar panels, but it's not my principal place of residence, so it was really expensive just to have those. And I'm not joined to the water system. Bit sad. Sorry, that's a bit jumpy.
That's our internet, sorry.
This is the thing that Ron was talking about before, where you got the heat of the sun heating the polished concrete floor. It's also a lovely feeling in winter to have that sun coming in. And I don't have many shirts or jumpers. Wearing the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Oh my goodness. So another thing to watch, big tree here. You can see how it affects the solar panels. So I've got micro inverters on each of my solar panels, which means that only those panels that are shaded doesn't take out the whole system. So that's it. Okay, and I think now, even though it's getting late, it'd be great to hear from you on what your great ideas are for energy efficiency in the home. Because basically what you're trying to do is reduce your energy use, as well as get a good price for what you're paying for. Rosemary?
We left a magic house, really. It was straw bale, which of course the insulation is absolutely incredible in that. It had a light court in the middle, so it was a circle within, a circle within. And and it was an earth floor, so granite dust, then the membrane, and then earth, about, probably about that 8, I'm going to go inches thick. And the coolness, I was building the front entry down at the gate with a young fellow, and he needed to go to the toilet, and he raced up and he said, "Oh, it was so cool inside." There was a tremendous difference, and of course we were off grid and catching our own water, and very inexpensive. And we did have solar panels, not enough. Initially, we only had 6, and it was a bit old-fashioned, but then we got 10 more on the shed, and that had no shade out on it at all. Now, where we've moved to, we have the same number of panels, but there are tall trees in the garden, so the whole thing goes out when the trees. So you mentioned that.
Micro inverters.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I've also got some things to tell you about. The Victorian government has a number of schemes that you can link to. Those of us on the 2030A committee are also linked in with a North East Community Energy Group called NESEN, and we actually had a meeting with the Minister on Tuesday, and she talked about the fact that the Victorian government's investing $335.5 million over 4 years to provide efficient, lower-cost heating and cooling for 250,000 low-income and vulnerable households. So you can register your interest for changing the way you heat your house. So if you don't want to have all that firewood, and you'd like a better reverse cycle air conditioner, the government, I think, will give you $1,000 towards that. $300 a year for those upgrading from a gas heater. No, this is what you're expected to save. $300 a year for those upgrading from a gas heater, $680 a year for those replacing inefficient electric heating, and $900 a year for those replacing LPG. The program will provide a base rebate of $1,000 towards the cost of installing high efficiency heating and cooling. So that's a new thing. Wow. It's not yet out, but you can register your interest in that. The other thing I've got, I will get it out, it's in my bag. We've got a friend and a member of 2030A who's done a case study of how she retrofitted her house. And so I've got that Yay case study to give out. There was one more thing. Oh, here it is. The Current Choice magazine, always good to look for what Choice has to say. So what Ron was saying about some of his appliances, you can look in this current version about what's happening for your refrigerator. So they've got a table of different sizes of refrigerator. Their choice. I've got a copy of my presentation, and something that Claire found, which is really good. It's just how to make the change to cleaner, cheaper energy, and basically the idea is get off gas and change to electricity. So we've got some of those as well.
We could have a gas-led recovery.
Yeah.
Take that man on a bike ride.
Scotty, get back to the advertising department, please.
Can I ask your group,
Yeah.
when you get a chance, everywhere else in the world uses geothermal heating and cooling. I've put in a system of my own design.
Yeah.
I don't pay any electricity even though I'm connected to the grid. And it is so cheap, it is just not funny.
Yeah. That's in Yate?
Just Glenburn.
Yeah,
And
that's
if
great.
anybody wants to see it, I've got vacuum tube hot water. I've got solar panels, one lot with micro inverters, which was a very good idea of yours, and one on a string. And the geothermal, I just dug a trench, buried pipes in it, pumped the water around, and that heats the house and cools it.
Fantastic. So that's like having the wires on the back of your refrigerator on the ground in front of your house.
Exactly, buried
Yeah.
underneath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic.
And it really, if anybody ever wants to see it,
Well, we might have a little
I'd love to see it.
expedition.
yeah. It's been ratified by Melbourne Uni.
Great. Yeah.
Standard air conditioning's got a COP, coefficient of performance of about 2. This has worked out at about 6.
Yeah.
And I did it myself.
Well done.
Well, there you go. What are you working for the council for?
They fired me.
Because
I retired.
Careful.
Okay. No, I'm just saying that's a really important thing. It's really.
It really, yeah, and I haven't paid a bill for so long.
Well, my best bill was, I was really going to send it to John, the person who taught us about how to understand your electricity bill. I got a really good one in Melbourne this week. It said your total electricity bill for the 2 months is $12.53. So I've got 7.23 kilowatts on the roof of solar panels. And then there's a discount for paying off early. So the $12.53. And the discount was $21.76. I thought, well, I'm not complaining.
How does that work?
Alistair?
One of the important things that I found out years ago was if you were going to give the old man the old fridge for his beer fridge, don't.
No. Oh, this is in my list.
Beer fridges are renowned for being juice guzzlers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old fridge in the garage.
In my notes
The old
about,
fridge in the garage.
In my notes about fridges, I say 1 fridge, not 2.
Yep.
The number of people who goes, I'll just go out and get a couple of beers from the fridge in the garage. How, you know how much a fridge is going to cost, and you're spending all that money for a couple of.
Another interesting thing, Elaine, this week at the Yate Community House meeting, we discovered that the Pioneer Reserve was bringing in these massive electricity bills all the time, and they got the RACV solar guy to have a look, and he discovered that under the sink there was an old hot water service that was on all the time.
Oh my goodness!
It was costing a fortune.
How fantastic
never
had those
used.
guys.
He just
local.
turned it off. Boom.
That's amazing. So I thought some good principles. I was going to say good principle is a heat map, but it's setting up this little this little system of heat to coal battery operated clothing. I think keeping the warmth close to the body is really important. So put a jumper on. Don't put on the fan heater. And if all else fails, go to bed and read a book. Electric blanket doesn't cost much. Or a wool doona, and use the sun wherever possible.
Turn the temperature down.
Goose down. I'll
On
wear
the
goose down.
eighth.
Turn the temperature down, yeah. Sometimes when you have visitors, you think you've got to heat the place, but
Turning the temperature down on if you have an electric hot water system too saves heaps.
yeah.
I think they usually set it about 80, but if you set it at 60, which is plenty, it saves a lot.
The thing that I find really good on the heat pump is that you can have it so that it's in eco mode, and sometimes I'll put it on for like 2.5 hours in the middle of summer. It's just starting to get a bit cold now, so I might put it on the hybrid mode, and then when it's really freezing in the middle of winter in Yea, I'll put it on the total mode. But read John's article about it, because It's quite
Depends
good.
on the heat pump you install as well, because there's cheap ones going around at the moment that you've got no control whatsoever.
Yeah.
So do a bit of investigation before you accept in the office.
Yeah. There's no point in just accepting an offer from someone who knocks on your door if they're not going to be around in 3 years' time to fix it up.
No. Elaine, can I just
Elaine, yeah.
ask, I've got a money pit as well, an old miner's cottage that's built on the ground, at the back in particular. You were talking, and I have to refloor it within the next 12 or 18 months.
Well, if you have to refloor it, you can put some insulation underneath.
I was just going to ask you about what type of insulation do you put?
Well, you know about insulation underfloor.
Yeah, I've just insulated the house in Yea on the Fly. I just put wall bats
Oh, okay.
underneath. So I think
So with that, do you have a gravel base underneath and then insulate?
well, this house was a little bit higher on Oliver Street, but a little bit higher off the ground, so I could actually go underneath, put the bats in, and then just put straps across so the bats didn't touch the ground. But you're much lower where you are.
Yeah, well, it's built. The back of the house is built straight under it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but just as you would insulate walls and ceiling, I just used wall bats.
Oh, okay.
So one of you can buy a roll of
Sort of foil.
foil.
Yeah.
And there's also sort of stiff insulation that's easier to fit.
Did you use that on your house?
No, because we reused the slab that was there.
Okay.
So,
so there's lots of people here who've done terrific things in terms of efficiency.
There's also some quite advanced multi-layer insulations, which although they're quite thin, their thermal resistance is incredibly high.
Yeah.
They are not cheap, but you get what you pay for.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it might be a little bit more expensive, the initial outlay, but the saving over the next 10, 15 years might more than compensate for that initial outlay.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I've found really useful is thinking about this concept of things that are thermally broken.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to break the cold air coming in, and so there is an actual barrier. You have to make the barrier by breaking the convection. Is it convection? Yeah. So I remember I was at the home show, and I said to this guy who had double glazed windows, I said, "Are they thermally broken?" He said, "Madam, if anything's broken, we'll be sure to replace it." I didn't buy those windows.
The other thing, Elaine, we've got brick and plaster inside. Is there something that you can get to put in between that wall? Because the walls are really quite cold, or else they're quite warm in summer.
I would join, if you're on Facebook, My Efficient Electric Home, and ask that question.
But that's what Elaine did. She just pumped this foam into the wall cavity.
Yeah, but they've got a brick house
drill a
now.
hole through the wood.
No, you could do it in the plaster, couldn't you?
that's what
In
she
the
wanted.
You
inside.
can do it inside. And the
Yeah.
company I used in Melbourne was a company called Enviroflex.
Okay. And is that the stuff that swells when it's inside?
No, it's under pressure. So sometimes I get little bits of it coming out of the TV aerial.
Out of the way.
The TV aerial hole. So I've got some things to give away here. So maybe you'd like to come and get them. That's it. For
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you. Next week, Claire's on, and we're going to launch the work that we've done with some funding from DELP. So these 3 items that Ron talked about came courtesy of some funds from DELP. So as part of that work, we've bought some books for the library, and also these 3 items that can be borrowed. Because it's really important, I think, to, kids have a toy library, adults need a toy library too. And there are things that we can put in the library. And then Claire will be launching 3 videos that have been made as part of the climate adaptation pages on our website. So we'll be looking at that next week. And then the week after, Alistair's going to be talking about regenerative agriculture with some of his gurus from across the way, across the pond. So thank you for coming. And if you'd like to